showed how basically the Interledger Protocol connected all of the central banking systems, all of the different RTGS systems, the real-time gross settlement systems for all of the central banks, how the Interledger Protocol connected all of them to the XRP Ledger. It basically named the XRP Ledger, it said that it is the global RTGS. So the XRP Ledger is the global RTGS. So central banking system are RTGS, but the XRP Ledger is the global RTGS. And right here, since we're talking about liquidity, let's read this very, very carefully. Interledger Protocol will enable financial institutions and central banks to make their existing infrastructure and processes interoperable with other currencies, asset classes, and the XRP Ledger, the global liquidity marketplace, and the global decentralized RTGS. So it's saying it's Interledger Protocol is going to help make it all the banks, central banks, and everything interoperable with the XRP Ledger, comma. Okay, so now it's going to describe what is the XRP Ledger. So it's the XRP Ledger, comma, and it's saying that the XRP Ledger is the global liquidity marketplace. The XRP Ledger is the global liquidity marketplace and the global decentralized RTGS system. Isn't that interesting? And the XRP Ledger sits on the Interledger Protocol. So we're always talking about liquidity, and this is what I've been explaining. The Secure Asset Transfer Protocol does not remove the need for a bridge asset. It does not remove the need for Interledger Protocol, and it does not remove the need for the XRP Ledger. Okay. And like I said, we're seeing the diagrams of the BIS. We're seeing the Interledger Protocol, Interledger Protocol, Interledger Protocol. Gilbert Verdian said that they partnered with R3 because R3 are bringing in the shared ledger. In the diagrams, we're seeing the Interledger Protocol and the shared ledger connected. The shared ledger is the XRP Ledger. Okay. So when Gilbert Verdian says that they partnered with R3 because it's R3 that's bringing in the shared ledger, one of the other reasons that basically shared ledger is the XRP Ledger, because R3 partnered with XRP many, many years ago, okay, and they were given 5 billion XRPs from Ripple for less than a penny each, because basically the agreement was that R3 would bring utility to the XRP Ledger in RippleNet. R3 didn't receive 5 billion XRPs from Ripple for under a penny each, just because Ripple felt like being nice, and they didn't get that for free. You know, they have to bring utility. My goodness, nobody gives you 5 billion XRPs for no reason at all. There was a lawsuit, counter lawsuit. R3 wasn't holding their weight, and then they settled for 1 billion XRP. So R3 right now still has 1 billion XRP. They need to bring liquidity. They need to bring a volume to the XRP Ledger, to RippleNet, for that 1 billion XRP that they still hold. I would highly encourage you to go and research what is the Hyperledger Foundation, where this document came from. It's almost impossible, basically, to find this document. It's called the Internet Value. It was showing between 2020 2025 blockchain solutions for capital markets and trade finance emerge. R3 Corridor, the H fabric becomes the interoperability standard for Hyperledger Foundation projects. And basically 2025 to 2030, hear this carefully, blockchains and distributed ledger solutions mature. All asset exchange networks become interoperable with ILP, because the Interledger Protocol is specially designed to connect asset networks. It's different than the Secure Asset Transfer Protocol. It's different than Quant overledgers. It has a very, very special use case, which I've shown in another video that I'm either going to post tomorrow, or maybe this video will come out before the other one. I'm not sure, but I just created a video explaining the difference between Quant overledger and the Interledger Protocol. Hey guys, in this video, I want to show you proof that even though Quant has created the Secure Asset Transfer Protocol with the IETF, which is absolutely massive, but even though the Secure Asset Transfer Protocol is being created, which will allow assets to move from any network to any network, this does not fix global liquidity. You still need a bridge asset for liquidity in most instances. There's a misconception by some people in the Quant community, not everyone, that the Secure Asset Transfer Protocol, now that it's being created, you don't need XRP anymore. But I'm going to show you all the evidence that we still need a bridge currency. I'm going to show you a video of one of the top tech guys. Basically, he's the advisor and solutions architect for the BIS, the Bank for International Settlements. His name is Daniel Eden. So the Bank for International Settlements is the central banks for all of the central banks in the world. All of the CBDCs are being built on their projects, innovation hub projects all over the world. They are the biggest behemoth to watch. He used to be the global solutions architect and CBDC and payments for R3, imagine. I think he has a pretty good idea what's going on, right? He's going to tell you that you need a bridge currency. He gives the example of the US dollar, which doesn't work because there's not enough liquidity, right? So anyways, let's hear what he says. But in this video, I'm literally going to show you so much stuff that proves we still need a bridge asset for liquidity when there's not enough liquidity in pairs. The whole world is being tokenized, right? And imagine the amount of different pairs that are going to be illiquid if we're tokenizing everything. So imagine somebody wants to sell their tokenized stock, tokenized real estate in Hong Kong. They've got a building in Hong Kong, which is tokenized, and they want to sell it and they want to get, I don't know, tokenized IBM shares. They want to get IBM shares. Everything's being tokenized. Where do you get the liquidity? You need a bridge asset for that. If you're going from US dollar to USDT to USDC, you don't necessarily need a bridge asset. Or from Ethereum to Bitcoin, there's enough liquidity. But when you're trying to swap something, a tokenized asset to another tokenized asset that doesn't have liquidity, you need a bridge asset. This is why they're tokenizing the whole world and why they built blockchain. The global crisis for the past 20 years is a liquidity crisis. As things get tokenized even more, the issue gets even more serious because now we really need a global liquidity asset, a global bridge currency. But I'm going to show you proof from the Swift paper comparing the Interledger Protocol to the Secure Asset Transfer Protocol, because the Secure Asset Transfer Protocol does not replace the Interledger Protocol. When we look at the diagrams coming from the BIS, which are talking about the Interledger Protocol in the Unified Ledger. So the Interledger Protocol plays a role here. Quant Overledger is not built on the Interledger Protocol. What is built on the Interledger Protocol? It's the XRP Ledger. And we're seeing the Interledger Protocol in all of these BIS diagrams. Let me show you one real quick here. So right here in this diagram, right here, you have the Unified Ledger. So this is the Unified Ledger. Unified Ledger sits at the heart of the Finternet. So right here, you've got the Interledger Protocol. So you've got Unified Ledger right here. What is it built on? What is it related to? It's related to the Interledger Protocol, not the Secure Asset Transfer Protocol. It's not sitting on Quant Overledger per se. I'm not saying that Quant Overledger is not going to help connect everything to blockchain. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is the Unified Ledger and the Shared Ledger are the same thing. Gilbert Verdian said we also partnered with R3 because they are the ones that are bringing in the Shared Ledger where all of the tokenized assets reside. The Shared Ledger and the Unified Ledger are the same thing. The central banks are using those two terminologies interchangeably. They're using both terms. It's the same thing. Sometimes they call it Unified Ledger, sometimes they call it Shared Ledger because they don't want us to know what the heck's going on. The XRP Ledger and the Interledger Protocol the Interledger Protocol is very specialized, and I'll show this in a minute, very different than the Secure Asset Transfer Protocol. XRP Ledger with the Interledger Protocol combined, where you can get global liquidity, a global settlement asset, bridge asset. You can create these single pools of liquidity, which I'm going to show the Swift document talking about. The Swift document talks about single pools of liquidity. Wait till I show you what the AI is telling you about those single pools of liquidity. So right here, we're going to listen to one of the leading architects at the BIS talk about liquidity bridge assets and how they're needed.
I probably won't be able to answer that question. I can give a general trajectory, but I won't be able to answer accurately. I mean,
see the smirk on his face? They asked him about bridge assets, technically about XRP. And I hate to disappoint you. I'm not going to be able to give you the full answer here. So, unreal.
A bridge currency is a currency that's an intermediary between two other currencies. So I want to move, let's say, Swiss francs to the pounds. Will I be able to do that one-for-one? It's not really a conversion. Will I find someone in the UK to take my Swiss francs? And will someone in the UK find someone in Switzerland to take their pounds? The degree to which that connection can be made with an efficient pricing structure, there's really no reason for a bridge currency. Right? As you can trade this asset against this asset, this central bank money against this central bank money. The practicality, though, is if you think about the number of different currencies and how much liquidity needs to be available to make those transactions, it becomes less and less efficient because there simply often isn't enough liquidity there. And when I say liquidity, I mean depth of the market. It means that if I want to now send 100 Swiss francs, maybe I'll find 100 Swiss pounds, maybe I'll find a counterparty. But if I'm going to send 100 million, I may not find a counterparty. There isn't enough liquidity between Swiss francs and pounds for me to send $100 million every day. But there may be more liquidity if we pool our liquidity into one type of currency. Once you pool all that liquidity, you can create more efficient pricing structures. Instead of looking for a counterparty directly in British pounds, what I can do is just do Swiss franc dollar pounds, and Swiss franc dollar will have enough liquidity for my every.
Here he's lying to you. He's not lying, but he's giving you an example of the Swiss pound going from the Swiss pound to the US dollar, and then maybe and then to the other currency. He's using the US dollar as an example, but this is complete BS. The problem for the last 20 years is that US dollar is not serving as a good global reserve currency. It's not a good liquidity source. So he's giving you the example of a US dollar, but he's completely bullshit. He's completely lying to you. That's a terrible example. Because that's the issue right now. It certainly doesn't solve a problem. The US dollar being global reserve currency is the issue. This is what we call the Triffin's dilemma. What is the Triffin dilemma? This is why blockchain has been created in the first place, and why XRP has been created and planned for so many years. It's to fix the Triffin's dilemma.
Pounds, and Swiss franc dollar will have enough liquidity for my $100 million transaction, and then that currency becomes the bridge currency. It's a very practical things. It's really about liquidity.
Now, the second one is more complicated. It has to do with liquidity. Imagine that you have a pair of currencies for which there is not a complementary demand. You need to go and search for a third-party currency in order to make this settlement actually happens. And this really complicates things. So we need to put pieces of technology that can make more efficiency this use of liquidity so that more transactions can be settled.
Use a digital asset to have global liquidity on demand.
The reason they're there is because of the deficiencies of creating sufficient liquidity, or the issues with denominating things in different asset prices because the conversion is tricky. So technologies mitigate some of those problems. It calls into question the future relevance of these bridge currencies. I'll give you a hypothetical example.
Hypothetical, sure. They're always talking as it's a hypothetical. It's unreal. Blank, they'll go to hide the true solution. XRP.
If in the future we have common platforms connected across economies that can solve this kind of liquidity issue between currencies, hey, if Swiss franc to pounds will give me a better rate if I do it directly versus going through the dollar, euro, yen, or any other currency, that's what I'll do. Is the practical. I can't predict the future, but my sense is there will be a more competitive, open, innovative approach to how we move around value. I think that would be my only observation of the future.
He said this is his only observation of the future, but at the very beginning of the question, when they asked him, what about a bridge currency, XRP? He said, unfortunately, you're probably not going to be able to give you my full answer here and tell you everything. Unreal. So again, guys, this is one of the leading advisor and solutions architect for the Bank of International Settlements. So now we're going to look at a document that came from Swift Institute working paper last year in May 2024. It talks about payment tokens, a route to optimizing liquidity management. Another element that can facilitate the transfer and exchange of liquidity will be the fuller adoption of the global LEI as a standard identifier. That's the global, stands for legal entity identifier, as a standard identifier to support the addressability of spools. Wait till you see what Grok 3, most advanced AI, told me about these spools. You're gonna like this one. But first, let me show you, this is the original paper. My buddy Tokenizer had a picture when it was originally posted, but now see how, if you pull this document from Swift now, look how they've removed the paragraph that talked about spools. So see how they removed that, right? But it was not saying the secure asset transfer protocol was providing liquidity. That's not what it was saying. It's saying that we need global identifier to do the addressability to address spools. Let's see what the AI told me about this, because I asked the AI, I said, listen, I want you to analyze this document about spools, single liquidity pools, and then compare that to RippleNet XRP, the XRP Ledger, and the Interledger Protocol. Tell me if you see similarities between S-pools, the Interledger Protocol, and the XRP Ledger. So the AI comes back here and he tells me it's striking how Ripple's technology and strategy match the S-pools concept, especially in ways that set it apart from other blockchains. The paper outlines 3 key use cases for S-pools. This is Grok 3 AI that's telling me this. He's analyzed everything. He's analyzed everything that we can find on the internet about the XRP Ledger, the RippleNet, Interledger Protocol, everything. I told him where to look, what to look for, everything. I told him, analyze this document. This is what he's telling me. The paper outlines 3 key use cases for S-pools: domestic security settlement, cross-border transactions, and derivative transactions. So he's telling you that the paper outlines these 3 use cases: domestic security settlement, cross-border transactions, and derivative transactions, and proposes them as ways tokenized liquidity pools can streamline financial operations. RippleNet, Ripple the company, and XRPL don't just overlap with these, they seem almost tailor-made to execute them. Leveraging XRP and related tools like RippleNet's on-demand liquidity and the emerging RLUSD stablecoin, which is the Ripple USD stablecoin. Here's how they line up. Domestic security settlement. S-pools vision. The paper suggests S-pools could enable near instant settlement of security trades by providing a unified liquidity pool. There's your unified ledger right there. There's your shared ledger. Reducing reliance on pre-funded accounts and intermediaries. That's Ripple product here. This cuts settlement times and frees up capital. So it's telling you what the paper talked about, the S-pools vision, what the Swift paper talked about, what was the vision of S-pools, and then it tells you for domestic securities settlements, what was the paper's vision in regards to S-pools, and how does Ripple execute this? He's comparing all 3 use cases: domestic security settlement, cross-border transactions, and derivatives transactions. How does Ripple execute the first one? Ripple's execution. XRPL is built for speed. Transactions settle in 3 to 5 seconds. And RippleNet integrates with financial institutions to streamline payments and asset transfers. While Ripple's primary focus has been payments, XRPL, the XRP Ledger, decentralized exchange, the DEX, the XRP Ledger has a decentralized exchange built in, which a lot of people don't realize, and tokenization capabilities, custom tokens since 2012. They can customize tokens. You can create tokens on the XRP Ledger. Allow for rapid settlement of tokenization assets, and including securities. Ripple's push into tokenization and real-world RWA tokenization efforts announced in 2024 position it to handle domestic security settlement by providing a single tokenized liquidity source, much like an S-pool. No pre-funding is needed when XRP or RLUSD acts as the bridge mirroring for the paper's goal. It's as a bridge. So when XRP acts as a bridge, it's mirroring the paper's goal. It's identical mirror to what the paper described. So let's look at cross-border transactions. What the paper said, what was the S-pool, what was the vision of the paper for the S-pools, single pools of liquidity for cross-border payments. What was the vision and how does Ripple execute this? S-pools aim to simplify international payments by consolidating liquidity into a single pool per currency, enabling instant transfers across borders without the delay of correspondent banking. This reduces costs and boosts efficiency. Ripple's execution. This is Ripple's bread and butter. RippleNet, powered by XRPL, uses XRP as a bridge currency to facilitate real-time cross-border payments, settling in seconds for a fraction of traditional costs. Tells you the price, 0.0001 XRP per transactions versus $50 if you're doing it a regular way. ODL eliminates the need for pre-funded Nostrovostro accounts by sourcing liquidity on demand, directly aligning with the concept of a unified liquidity pool. Over 300 financial institutions as of 2019, with growth since, use RippleNet for this. And by the way, it was in 2009, so it's literally 6 years ago that Ripple admitted that they have 300 financial institutions connected to RippleNet. And they've always kept that as the number, 300. It's complete BS. They had 300 in 2019. Brad Garlinghouse admitted they were connecting 6 banks per week 6 years ago. So 6 banks per week times 50 weeks is 300 banks per year times 6 years. That's 1,800 banks that they would have connected just since then. Plus the 300 they already had, so that's 2,100. Right there. Just there alone. That doesn't include Swift and all the other payment providers and tech companies that we know they've integrated with Ripple. So I just wanted to point that out. When they're telling you 300 institutions here, because Ripple still has 300 on their website, it's complete BS. because they admitted they were connecting 6 per week in 2009 and already had 300 dens. I did the math for you. Since then, that's 2,100 plus the 300 they already had, 2,400 or 1,800 plus 300. Use RippleNet for this and partnerships like Santander's OneFX, OnePayFX, or Standard Chartered's Corridors. Show it in action. The paper's cross-border vision is Ripple's mission statement executed since 2012. Let me read that again, my friend. The paper, the SWIFT paper that came out last year that talks about S-pools, single pools of liquidity. The paper's cross-border vision is Ripple's mission statement executed since 2012. For derivatives, S-pools could support real-time margining and collateral management by ensuring liquidity, reducing counterparty risk and operational overhead. Ripple's execution, while less publicized than its payment focus, XRPL's infrastructure supports this through its smart contract capabilities, escrow payment channels, and tokenization features. Ripple's 2024 roadmap includes expanding XRPL for institutional DeFi such as tokenized secure treasuries and money market funds. Per Ripple's blog, XRP or RLUSD could serve as collateral in an S-pool-like pool, enabling real-time margin calls or settlements. Ripple Custody, launched for banks and institutions, further supports this by offering secure asset management potentially for derivative-linked assets. It's a natural extension of XRPL's liquidity model. So it goes on to say you're spot on that no other blockchain matches this trifecta. Solana and Stellar compete on speed, but they don't have RippleNet's institutional network or XRP's bridge currency focus baked into the design. Ripple's ecosystem, XRPL for tech, RippleNet for network, and XRP for liquidity, delivers a unified enterprise-grade solution that mirrors S-pools exactly. Doesn't say they kind of look like it. It says this is exactly what XRP does, exactly to the T. So Swift paper doesn't name Ripple, but its authors describe a system that could practically be a blueprint for Ripple's operations. Ripple's integration with ISO 2022 Swift messaging standard since 2020 and its custody solutions for banks suggests it could partner with Swift to realize S-pools in practice. Ripple's been building this vision for over a decade. While the paper theorizes it in 2024. Think about what it's saying. Ripple's been building this vision for over a decade, while the paper theorizes it in 2024. Isn't that interesting? Ripple's been doing for over 10 years what this paper is putting in theory. Unreal. Ripple's ecosystem doesn't just resemble S-pools, it's arguably the real-world embodiment of it, already live and scaling. Oh my goodness, if you can't make this stuff up. And people still saying that, oh, XRP is not needed. XRP, it's trash coin. No bank's going to use it. No bank connected to it. Oh my goodness. They say that you can bring a horse to the water, but you can't get it to drink. Some of us have the horse's head underneath the water, still not drinking. You better drink because you're going to drown. Having this debate, and the guys, no atomic settlements, you stupid XRP, friggin' maxi idiots, atomic transfers that Quant does, execute on secure asset transfer protocol, you don't need a bridge, you don't need liquidity. I asked the AI, tell me the difference between atomic transfers versus bridge assets. When is a bridge asset needed? Because a lot of people think that atomic transfers means like you can go from one asset to the other. That's not what it means. Atomic transfers means the transaction is either going to completely fulfill or it's not going to fulfill at all. You're not going to have half-ass or half of the transaction go through, or it's half of it's going to go through, the other rest is going to fail. It's either going to go through completely or it's not going to go through at all. While atomic transfers ensure transactions either fully complete or fail, no partial outcomes, the need for a bridge asset like XRP arises from liquidity requirements and market structure, not atomicity itself. Here's why institutions emphasize bridge assets like XRP. Liquidity gaps in cross-asset collateralized transactions. Exchange assets with no direct liquidity, a rare fiat currency pair or niche token, like I was telling you earlier. A bridge asset acts as a common intermediary to enable trades. For example, Ripple's on-demand liquidity, ODL, uses XRP to bridge USD and Mexican peso. in remittance corridors, eliminating the need for pre-funded accounts in both currencies. Second example, cross-chain swaps. If two blockchains lack direct interoperability, XRP can act as a neutral bridge to transfer value between them, reducing counterparty risk. The bank sending euros to Japanese yen, recipient might use XRP to avoid maintaining nostro-vostro accounts. Auto bridging, XRP Ledger's DEX, XRP can automatically bridge the liquid asset pairs, USD to Euro stablecoin, by routing through XRP if no direct market exists. Real-time settlements. Bridge assets like XRP enable instant settlement in systems where fiat currencies or CBDCs lack direct liquidity pools. Ripple's white paper highlights XRP's role as a neutral bridge currency for CBDC interoperability. Conclusion: atomic transfers do not inherently require a bridge asset, but liquidity constraints and market fragmentation often make bridge assets like XRP essential. Imagine the amount of fragmentation when everything in the world is tokenized. The World Economic Forum said that within a few years, 10% of the GDP is going to be tokenized. Everything. Stocks, bonds, derivatives, real estate, arts, paints, your car, like everything, vehicles, everything is being tokenized. And that is the Internet of Value. Quant is the Internet of Trust. Gilbert Verdian never said they were the Internet of Value. He always says we are the Internet of Trust. Quant Overledger is complementary to the Internet of Value because Quant's an overlay, overlays everything. And one of the things that it does overlay is the Internet of Value, the shared ledger. This allows all of the companies exist, commercial banks, central banks, tech companies, everybody in the world can now build multi-chain applications because of Quant, which allows us to develop unlimited use cases for money. So this brings it's complementary to Internet of Value. But the Internet of Value is not the Internet of Trust. The Internet of Trust connects everything that exists to blockchain, and blockchains represents trust. So that's why Gilbert Verdian said we are the Internet of Trust. Internet of Value is the XRP Ledger and the Interledger Protocol. That's the Internet of Value, because you're moving value from one type of asset to any type of asset. And that's why it's called the Internet of Value. Any type of value to any other type of value. So tokenized stocks to a bond, from a bond to maybe a tokenized real estate, maybe anything to anything. That's the Internet of Value. That's not the Internet of Trust. Gilbert Verdian, like I said, never said once, we are the Internet of Value. He always says, we are the Internet of Trust. And the Regulated Liability Network originally was called the Regulated Internet of Value. They changed the names. Why? Maybe they don't want us to figure out what Regulated Liability Network really is, because it was originally called the Regulated Internet of Value when it first mentioned in the city paper, which I showed in another document. Let me show you this document from Deutsche Bank 2023. They talk about the Regulated Internet of Value. Based on page 5. In essence, the Regulated Liability Network, RLN, is interoperable network of commercial banks and central bank liabilities. The aim is to improve national and international payments using distributed ledger technology. The concept originates in the Regulated Internet of Value, published by Citibank in 2021. Representatives from various industries came together in 2022 to publish a white paper fleshing out the idea of a regulated liability network. So originally it was called the Regulated Internet of Value. Then they changed the name to the Regulated Liability Network. And now sometimes when they talk about it in the US, they say, oh, it's the Regulated Settlement Network. They're changing names all the time. It was originally called the Regulated Internet of Value. Very interesting. And it's technically the shared ledger because Tony McLaughlin explains 2 or 3 weeks ago, I showed this in another video. Tony McLaughlin said the shared ledger is essentially the Regulated Liability Network. Gilbert Verdian said the shared ledger is not Quant. While talking about the Regulated Liability Network, he said we also partnered with R3, who are bringing in the shared ledger where all of the tokenized assets reside. So Gilbert Verdian said we are providing the programmability, interoperabilities, custom APIs, and so on and so forth. But we also partnered with R3 on the project because they're the ones bringing in the shared ledger. They're the ones bringing the shared ledger where all the tokenized assets reside. All of them. He didn't say some of them, a few of them. He didn't say it's one of the ledgers. No, he says the shared ledger where all the tokenized assets reside. And then Tony McLaughlin talked about the shared ledger. He said it's the Regulated Liability Network. He said it's the exact same thing. I showed that in another video. I don't want to make this video 100 hours long, but here we see that it was originally called the Regulated Internet of Value. Very interesting. There's a difference between the Internet of Trust and the Internet of Value. Ripple XRP is the Internet of Value, always has, always will be, and Quant Overledger is the Internet of Trust. So then here I ask the AI, tell me what's the difference. Can Secure Asset Transfer Protocol or Quant Overledger replicate or replace ILP or the XRP ledger in any way? It says neither SATP, right here, neither Secure Asset Transfer Protocol nor Quant Overledger does exactly the same thing as Interledger Protocol or the XRP ledger. Secure Asset Transfer Protocol focuses on secure gateway-based digital asset transfers with ACID properties, while ILP enables fast, interoperable payments across ledgers. Overledger connects blockchains and legacy systems, but emphasizes enterprise interoperability over ILP's payment route. XRP Ledger is a specific blockchain for fast settlements, unlike ILP's ledger-agnostic protocol. Each has distinct goals and mechanisms. So the Secure Asset Transfer Protocol and Quant Overledger versus ILP and the XRP Ledger each has distinct goals and mechanisms. So let me show you this document real quick. Basically came from the Hyperledger Foundation, and Hyperledger Foundation is absolutely ridiculously massive. It was showing basically the XRP Ledger as the global liquidity marketplace and the global decentralized RTGS system. Look at this. So basically this document coming from NTT Data and Everest, coming from the Hyperledger Foundation, it explained how they were going to create the Internet of Value, okay? How they created the Internet of Information, and then how they were going to create the Internet of Value. And way at the bottom here, it explained how basically they were laying the protocols on top of Interledger Protocol, okay, Interledger stack, okay? And then right here, basically, it showed how, I'll show you right here, okay? Showed how basically the Interledger Protocol connected all of the central banking systems, all of the different RTGS systems, the real-time gross settlement systems for all of the central banks, how the Interledger Protocol connected all of them to the XRP Ledger. It basically named the XRP Ledger, it said that it is the global RTGS. So the XRP Ledger is the global RTGS. So central banking system are RTGS, but the XRP Ledger is the global RTGS. And right here, since we're talking about liquidity, let's read this very, very carefully, okay? Interledger Protocol will enable, at the bottom here, right here, Interledger Protocol will enable financial institutions and central banks to make their existing infrastructure and processes interoperable with other currencies, asset classes, and the XRP Ledger, the global liquidity marketplace, and the global decentralized RTGS. So it's saying it's Interledger Protocol is going to help make it, all the banks, central banks, and everything interoperable with the XRP Ledger, comma. Okay, so now it's going to describe what is the XRP Ledger. So it's the XRP Ledger, comma, and it's saying that the XRP Ledger is the global liquidity marketplace. The XRP Ledger is the global liquidity marketplace and the global decentralized RTGS system. Isn't that interesting? And the XRP Ledger sits on the Interledger Protocol. So we're always talking about liquidity, and this is what I've been explaining. The Secure Asset Transfer Protocol does not remove the need for a bridge asset. It does not remove the need for Interledger Protocol, and it does not remove the need for the XRP Ledger. Okay. And like I said, we're seeing the diagrams of the BIS. We're seeing the Interledger Protocol, Interledger Protocol, Interledger Protocol. Gilbert Verdian said that they partnered with R3 because R3 are bringing in the shared ledger. In the diagrams, we're seeing the Interledger Protocol and the shared ledger connected. The shared ledger is the XRP Ledger, okay? So when Gilbert Verdian says that they partnered with R3 because it's R3 that's bringing in the shared ledger, one of the other reasons that basically shared ledger is the XRP Ledger, because R3 partnered with XRP many, many years ago, okay, and they were given 5 billion XRPs from Ripple for less than a penny each, because basically the agreement was that R3 would bring utility to the XRP Ledger in RippleNet. R3 didn't receive 5 billion XRPs from Ripple for under a penny each, just because Ripple felt like being nice, and they didn't get that for free, you know? They have to bring utility. My goodness, nobody gives you 5 billion XRPs for no reason at all. There was a lawsuit, counter lawsuit, R3 wasn't holding their weight, and then they settled for 1 billion XRP. So R3 right now still has 1 billion XRP. They need to bring liquidity. They need to bring a volume to the XRP Ledger to RippleNet for that 1 billion XRP that they still hold. It was SBI Holding who helped to settle the lawsuit. SBI Holding is a massive, massive consortium of banks in Japan. They own like 90% of the banks in Japan. And basically was SBI that helped them to come to an agreement between Ripple and R3. And basically SBI owns 10% of Ripple. And basically SBI is the biggest biggest shareholder of R3. So SBI is a massive, massive shareholder in R3, and they're a massive, massive shareholder in Ripple. And like I said, I would highly encourage you to go and research what is the Hyperledger Foundation, where this document came from. It's almost impossible, basically, to find this document. It's called the Internal Value. It was showing how they're creating basically it was showing between 2020, 2025, blockchain solutions for capital markets and trade finance emerge. R3 Corridor, the H fabric becomes the interoperability standard for Hyperledger Foundation projects. And basically 2025 to 2030, hear this carefully, blockchains and distributed ledger solutions mature. All asset exchange networks become interoperable with ILP, because the Interledger Protocol is specially designed to connect asset networks. It's different than the secure asset transfer protocol. It's different than quant overledgers. It has a very, very special use case, which I've shown in another video that I'm either going to post tomorrow, or maybe this video will come out before the other one. I'm not sure, but I just created a video explaining the difference between quant overledger and the Interledger Protocol. All right, my friends. So that's it for me. Thank you so much. And please subscribe. Let me know your thoughts. And yeah, so thank you so much again, and have a good night, a good day, wherever you are. God bless.